Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're here, well, it probably means you want the real story behind the glossy travel brochures. Today, we're definitely tearing up that postcard image. We're focusing on a very specific spot on the Dominican Republic's north coast, so Sosua. We've been digging into this newly published 2025 travel guide, and it promises the unfiltered, shocking truth about the town. So our mission here is pretty clear. Move past just the turquoise waters and white sand. We want to uncover the complex reality beneath, the economic setup, the intense nightlife, and honestly, the street smarts. You absolutely need to actually enjoy this place.
Because it's vibrant, yes, but also challenging.
Exactly. And look, we're not here to just say the beaches are nice. I think we can take that as a given, right? What our sources really hammer home is that Sosua is a place where its best qualities are completely tangled up with its challenges. This deep dive is all about giving you that crucial context, preparing you for a destination that's often, well, a study in extremes. Okay, but let's start with the visuals, because the guide is up front. The natural beauty is real. Playa Sosua. It's genuinely this spectacular curved bay. You get those calm, clear waters, perfect for swimming, snorkeling, the classic beach stuff. And then there's Playa Alicia, which is a bit newer, apparently. Gives off a slightly more secluded vibe. The appeal is definitely there.
Right. But what jumps out almost immediately is how close the beautiful is to the complicated. And it's not just a visual thing like, oh, look, a nice view next to a busy street. It actually speaks volumes about Sosua's whole economic structure, which seems kind of split down the middle. That perfect postcard beach scene. It exists maybe a few minutes walk from a world that's chaotic, loud, and really complex.
Yeah, it's the speed of that change that feels jarring based on the descriptions. 1 minute you could be, say, watching the sunset from some immaculate multi-million-dollar villa overlooking the ocean, and literally the next you step onto a street that's just dense, noisy, and humming with this really complicated commerce. So if you're heading to Sosua, you just got to be ready for that immediate switch, serenity to sensory overload.
Yeah.
That contrast, it basically defines the whole experience.
And that contrast often hits you hardest, well, right in the wallet. This is where we need to get into the cost of paradise. There's this lingering idea that the whole DR is universally dirt cheap.
Yeah.
But our source, this 2025 guide, it specifically flags a noticeable price shift in Sosua. It seems this particular town has definitely drifted away from being just a super inexpensive option across the board.
Okay, let's break that down, because the guide makes it clear. Your budget really shapes your entire experience there. Accommodation, for instance. If you are really, really pinching pennies, the guide says you might find a basic guest house for maybe around $30 a night. But, and this is a big but, you have to expect very basic amenities, minimal security, and probably a lot of noise from the street bleeding in.
Yeah, and just to move one step up from that, say, to a decent, clean hotel, maybe in a slightly safer area, you're already looking at a jump. We're talking maybe $70 to $150 per night. That's a huge difference, right? It really highlights that comfortable, secure travel in Sosua. It isn't actually cheap.
And the food scene just mirrors this split perfectly.
Yeah.
If you want that authentic local vibe and local prices, you absolutely have to hunt down a local Commodore, those small family-run spots, where you can get a really hearty, delicious meal. Maybe some mango that's mashed plantains or crispy chicharron, the fried pork belly.
And that meal, yeah, at the Commodore, it might cost you as little as $5, which is amazing. But then you just walk across the street onto Pedro Clisante Street, the main tourist drag, and bam. Those restaurants aim squarely at tourists. They'll hit you with prices almost like North America. Yeah. Think $20, maybe even $30 for just one main dish. The town literally presents these two completely different economic realities, sometimes just 50 feet apart.
Which leads us right into this whole concept of the negotiation economy that apparently runs through everything there. Okay, so activities like snorkeling trips. The guide says they're generally good value, but it stresses that the first price you're quoted for almost anything. Souvenirs, taxis, whatever.
Yeah, it's almost never the final price.
Exactly. Everything's negotiable. And how good you are at haggling basically decides if you're experiencing Sosua from the budget zone or the tourist bubble price point.
And if you think about what that means, this constant negotiation, it really changes how you interact with people, doesn't it? It means you're always sort of mentally calculating, shifting between what might be the local price and the tourist price. It creates this transactional layer that can make genuine, easy cultural chats feel, well, difficult.
Okay, so where does all this intensity, this negotiation culture, really reach its absolute peak? No question, according to the guide. Pedro Clisante Street. It calls this the pulsating heart of Sosua. And it apparently is the most divisive topic for visitors.
Yeah.
By day, okay, it's a busy commercial street, lots of shops, traffic. But after sunset, total transformation. It becomes what the source described as a vibrant, loud, and often overwhelming spectacle.
Overwhelming is definitely the key word there. Our read of the nightlife section, the unfiltered view is, yeah, it's sensory overload. Think aggressive promoters trying to get you into bars, music blaring from everywhere, really dense crowds. And we need to be clear about the dominant vibe here after dark. The guide points squarely at a very noticeable and for some uncomfortable adult-oriented tourism scene really taking over.
Right. And the guide includes a very specific warning here, something to take seriously, especially aimed at solo male travelers. It says, and I'm quoting loosely here, you should be prepared for constant approaches. That seems absolutely vital for setting expectations, particularly if you're traveling alone.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of high-intensity environment, it naturally leads you to the safety question, right? The guide is smart here. It avoids being overly dramatic. It basically says Sosua isn't perfectly safe, but it's not like dangerously unsafe either. What it demands is deep vigilance. That distinction feels important. Violent crime targeting tourists, considered relatively rare. However, and this is the bit to focus on, petty crime is unfortunately rampant.
And when the guide says rampant petty crime, it means specific things. Easy opportunities. It lists phone snatching, someone grabbing your phone right out of your hand. Pickpocketing. Bag theft. These are the most common threats. And these incidents apparently spike in crowded places like Pedro Clisante at night, and also, importantly, on the beaches after dark when things quieten down.
So that raises a really important question for you as a potential visitor. Why? Why is petty crime so rampant there? It seems to tie directly back to that economic split we talked about. The visible wealth of tourists, the smartphones, the bags, maybe jewelry. It's in such stark contrast to the local economic situation for many. That creates a pretty powerful incentive for opportunistic theft. It's not personal, it's economic pressure.
So what's the actionable advice then? How do you counter this? It's basically the standard street smarts playbook, but the guide presents it as absolutely non-negotiable for Sosua. Leave your flashy stuff, your valuables, in the hotel safe. Don't have them out. Avoid walking alone on deserted beaches late at night. That seems obvious, but people still do it. And maybe most importantly, project confidence. Look like you know where you're going, even if you don't. The source points out something interesting. Police presence is visible, but maybe your biggest risk isn't the lack of police, it's your own complacency, that it won't happen to me attitude.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly now to the cultural dynamic, what the guide calls the unspoken element. We mentioned earlier, Dominicans are generally known for being friendly, welcoming people, but the sheer volume of tourism in a place like Sosua, it seems to have layered most interactions, especially in the main tourist zones, with a thick financial motivation.
Yeah, that economic pressure, it translates into this kind of palpable divide. You, the tourist, arriving there. You're often immediately seen, particularly by those working the main strips, as a walking wallet. That's the phrase used. And this commercial overlay, it just makes it genuinely tough to break through sometimes, to have an authentic chat that doesn't, eventually turn into a sales pitch. You need to be prepared for that possibility in every conversation on the main street.
So what's the implication there for you? If your goal is actual cultural immersion, not just sitting on a beach, well, just showing up isn't going to cut it, according to this guide. It offers some pretty crucial advice.
You have to venture beyond those main tourist strips. Deliberately. And that takes effort. Like learning even a few basic words of Spanish apparently goes a really long way. It means making a conscious choice to connect on a human level, not just a commercial one. That effort, it seems, is the only way to kind of peel back those layers and find the real Sosua, whatever that means. Okay, so we've synthesized all these contrasts, right? The big price gaps, the safety warnings, the intense nightlife, the cultural layer. The final question has to be, should you visit Sosua in 2025?
And the answer is, it completely depends. It's really conditional. Based on the guide, we can paint a pretty clear picture of who Sosua is a fantastic fit for. It seems ideal for, say, first-time travelers to the Dominican Republic who actually want those stunning